Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. Today we are going to talk about the Kashmir imbroglio that has trapped the entire country in a scenario which is so very unacceptable. Last week we talked about the fact that 44 plus CRPF Jawans were killed by an errant, misguided and manipulated individual from Kashmir Valley. The problem arises is when the state of Pakistan openly and covertly uses these jihadis to pursue their own goal of destabilizing India. The interesting part is that the United Nations Security Council on Thursday passed a unanimous resolution condemning Pakistan with reference to this attack, and they said that Pakistan must not allow its territory to do the launch of the terror attacks. The question is, Pakistan Prime Minister is asking for evidences as if they do not know. The perpetrator of the crime himself claims that it is all done by him, and the headquarters of Jaish-e-Mohammed is in Pakistan itself. So what prevents Pakistan Prime Minister not to act? That's the question that we will talk about. We will also talk about the Indian scenario, the enemy within. That's the biggest problem. If you remember, in 2015, Manishankar Iyer went to Pakistan and openly sought Pakistan's help. When he was asked, what do we need to do to have a conversation? He said, let's unseat him. Help us get rid of Modi. Ever since then, there have been more than 10 attacks in Kashmir area, including Uri, Baramulla, and Anantnag and other places. The question here is, another dimension of this question is, does Modi or BJP gain by that? Because there was a currency, news that got currency was that Modi gains by this conflict. In reality, in my opinion, I think it puts Modi in a serious bind. Because you take an action, country wants an action. If you don't take action, that goes against you. If the action is not fully satisfactory, that also goes against you. To discuss the entire Kashmir imbroglio, I have the great pleasure of welcoming Dr. Rakesh Sharma. Sharma ji, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And importantly enough, he is from Kashmir. So he knows things from inside regarding the state and the problem, and who better than him to talk about that. So let's talk about this enemy within. Manishankar Iyer went to Pakistan, and that's an important part. देश के गद्दारों से पहले हमें अपने खुद को संभालना है. तो मणिशंकर अय्यर, I'm not saying he's a traitor, but there is a absolute evidence that he asked for Pakistan help to unseat Modi, and 2015 onwards, I have the whole list. There are 10 attacks in Kashmir area, including Amarnath Yatra, leading to severe destabilization. Your thoughts on that?
Okay, one little correction, Vibhuti. I'm from Punjab. Actually, I'm very close to Punjab and Jammu border.
All right.
Okay. And yes, regarding the enemy within, you have correctly pointed out that issue here is not what our neighbor Pakistan has been doing. Pakistan cannot be successful if it tries to do it alone. So there have to be people within India who have been helping Pakistan. So when I say within India, I don't mean Indians living in Chennai or Bombay. These are either people who live in J&K or some of the politicians who may be living in other parts of India. And we all know who these people are, because these people openly have been making statements for the last so many years. And it wonders, or I wonder all the time, do these people really want India to succeed or India to disappear from this planet? When I say to disappear, I don't mean the land is going to disappear, but the nation itself. As we already know, that part of India has been cut off in the form of Pakistan and Bangladesh, and J&K has been a problem since 1947. And so these enemies within are worse than enemies outside India. And if you give me permission, I just want to give viewers a little bit background about J&K.
Sure.
As we all know, when India was given independence on 15th August 1947, India was divided into two, India and Pakistan, and all the other princely states that were not under British rule, and there were about 562 of them, were given a choice to join either newly formed India or newly formed Pakistan. Most of the princely states fell within India because of geographical location, as well as they were mostly Hindus. But there were 3 or 4 states where the problem came. One of them was Junagadh, which is in Gujarat, other one in Hyderabad state, which is now in Andhra, and third one J&K. So we know that Junagadh was a major or majority Hindu state, but the ruler was Muslim. So with manipulation, we got Junagadh into India. Hyderabad state was taken later on by Sardar Patel with threat, because Hyderabad could not have joined Pakistan. It was in the middle of, or in the center of India. J&K somehow had a location which was between Pakistan and India. And that was a very tricky situation. Since it was ruled by Maharaja Hari Singh decided they didn't want to join India or Pakistan. At that time, both the countries were okay that if Hari Singh doesn't want to join, that's fine. So he was given a right to be an independent country. But within 3 months of getting independence, Pakistan attacked J&K, and we all know these were Pakistani soldiers and some Afghanistani tribal men. And when they invaded J&K, Hari Singh, who was not prepared and didn't have much army, requested India or Jawaharlal Nehru to help. And India said that legally we cannot enter your country unless you want to join. So Hari Singh on 26th October 1947 signed a letter that is called accession.
Instrument of accession.
Instrument of accession,
Right.
and he joined India. So that's when India went in, fought the war with Pakistani invaders, and we pushed them out. And after ceasefire, the line of control is what we still follow. About, I would say, 35% of J&K of that time went into Pakistan or being occupied by Pakistan. Rest was within India. Later on in 1962, China also took or invaded India and took part of Ladakh. So it seems that we have about 55% of J&K left with us, about 35% with 30% with Pakistan, and 15% with China. The problem really comes when we were writing the Constitution, or Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar was writing the Constitution. That's when Sheikh Abdullah, who was a great friend of Pandit Nehru, actually I don't want to call Pandit Nehru, I want to call him Jawaharlal Nehru, because we don't know if he was Pandit or not. Sheikh Abdullah went to Nehru and said, well, we want special concession, special status for people of J&K. And Bhimrao Ambedkar, who was extremely intelligent guy and graduated from Columbia University in New York, did not concede, and he told Nehru as well as Mr. Abdullah that, do you expect me to stab the newly formed nation India in the back and discriminate against citizens of India, that they cannot buy any land in J&K, but Kashmiris can go to India and do whatever they want? So he refused. That's when Nehru played very tricky game. He told Sardar Patel to convince Bhimrao Ambedkar to just make Abdullah happy. Ambedkar actually walked out of that meeting. He said, my conscience does not allow me to give any concession to J&K people or to Sheikh Abdullah. and he walked out. So at that time, people who were in the meeting, in the committee, signed that document without signature of Ambedkar. So I just want to tell the viewers that we have great respect for Sardar Patel, but this is the only time when Sardar Patel made a huge mistake of his life, and Jawaharlal Nehru,
by trying to agree
absolutely.
Because Jawaharlal Nehru was
by
from
trying to please
Kashmir.
Jawaharlal Nehru,
Right.
and gave special status to J&K,
Right.
and since then what we call is Article 370.
Right. You know, there has been a tremendous amount of demand for repeal or cancellation of Article 35, but even more tricky was the insertion of 35A later on, which doesn't have a parliament approval. Now, the question that comes about that we often hear is the dissatisfied youth of Kashmir, and that's one of the biggest challenges. But 90% of the budget of the Jammu and Kashmir state is funded by central government, by people of India. People of India are virtually sustaining the economy of Jammu and Kashmir. So if there is a dissatisfaction of the youth in Kashmir, who is responsible for that? Where does that money go? Subsequently, that 90% aid was replaced by 30% of grant and 70% of loan. So that has created an interest burden on the state, but only 30% of the Kashmir land is agriculturally suited. There is no industry, there is cottage industry. Now the question is, if you have no jobs, what will you do? And because the elite of Kashmir made money of this grant and aids going from India, the youth remains dissatisfied. They are not educated about that. And that's the important part. For making extra money, Pakistan plays a role. And it's very important to understand that Kashmiri Muslims, a lot of them are converted from Hinduism. The Kashmiri Muslim is different. National Conference was known actually as, was original name is Muslim Conference. But because they wanted a separate state, a separate whatever, they wanted to bring in the non-Muslims from that area, and they created the name National Conference. The original name is Muslim Conference, if in case you didn't know that. So the point here is that if Kashmir's economic development has to happen, I have one suggestion. And my suggestion is that if there are Kashmir emporiums all over the country, run by Kashmiris, why not to encourage tourism? Why don't we allow and let the government of India and Kashmir government agree to have handicraft emporiums from every other state in Kashmir? So the tourist who goes there, he has choice, and that will lead to local employment and local income. So there are many ways to handle the problem, but one of the things which is very critical, and I would like your opinion on that as well, that the seed of real anger that happened was in 1987. When the elections were rigged by National Conference and Congress Party, they captured 66 out of 76 seats in the assembly, and that really fomented the trouble. I was in Kashmir in 1989 when the first bullets were fired. So I have heard those bullets fired, and we were escorted out of the place next morning. As it was our scheduled day. So tell us something about the insight of how the economy of Kashmir, because Nehru said that it is the Switzerland of the East. Why hasn't Kashmir become the Switzerland actually? It is bigger than Switzerland. It could easily become big. So what prevents Kashmir becoming and achieving its full potential?
An excellent question. I think our politicians have been very naive when they keep on hitting on the same problem again and again without looking at the economics of the state.
Right.
Before I go into that, I just want to mention that central government in India, or called federal government in US,
Right.
gives about 5,000 rupees per person in, let's say, a state like Uttar Pradesh. But in J&K, they give 90,000 rupees per person per year to J&K. So that's the difference. They give so much money per person to the state government, and Kashmiris either don't know that or they never question their leaders. Hey, listen, where is my 90,000 rupee share? So that money is actually given so that money is spent on education, infrastructure of the state. But all the leaders take that money, and it seems to me that half of that money goes into their pockets and the other half goes into teaching them Islamic agenda. As we all understand, initially for at least 20-30 years, same Muslim people in Kashmir were not radical people. They were totally normal people like you and me. Only in the last 30 years, they have been radicalized. Right. So it looks like there has been radicalization or Islamization of population. If we pay more attention to the economy, Kashmir can really be self-independent state. They have land that grows apples and nuts. There's a lot of demand for that. They also have workers who are very handy people. They make perhaps the best qaleens in the world after Iran. So their qaleens are still world famous and they can make lots of money. And on top of all this, if we really believe Kashmir is Switzerland of the East, then we can promote tourism. And we used to have great tourism until 1985 or so in Kashmir. People used to go to Kashmir from India. And these days, most of the Indians actually have 10 times more vacations than they used to have 50 years ago. Kashmir can really attract all the tourists from India as well as from other countries.
Right. And it has been, it is a beautiful place, no
Yep.
doubt about that. But the challenge remains is a very important part. We will cover this element in the next segment soon after this short break. Welcome back. One of the important things about these battles of secession or terrorism is not something new to India alone. It has happened all over the world. Irish Republican Party army wanted secession from Great Britain. You have Basque Revolution in Spain. You have Tamil Eelam in Sri Lanka. We had Sikh agitation in India. All these issues got resolved because by dialogue, with action, all these matters got settled. The reason was there was no foreign country participating actively to foment terrorism. In Kashmir, Pakistan's hand is direct, and it's an open secret. It's not even a secret, it's just an open known fact. Now remember one thing, Kashmiris were essentially peaceful people. What happened was that when Pakistan began to lay claim on Kashmir, the Kashmiri Muslims were disenchanted with Pakistan, because how could a country that had a military rule of Yahya Khan and others, so many of them, they had destabilized democracy in their own country, how could they promise Kashmiris a democracy when they were having a military rule in their part of the country? Therefore, they succeeded in using ideology, religion and extremism to foment trouble in Kashmir, which took the form of many foreign fighters coming there. It's only in Fulwana scenario and of late that local kids are recruited and the weak and the vulnerable are allowed to blow up. The question here is very important. What must India do? So in the recent past, you must have read a lot of action has been taken, small but sure. One of them has been that today, last Thursday, I think, when Nitin Gadkari announced that India's share of water will no longer be going to Pakistan. We withdrew MFN requirement. We have withdrawn the terrorists who were getting security protections. So there are steps have begun to be taken, which is important. Isolation of Pakistan is key, which is also happening. But the problem arises that how do you shift the ideological hatred that has been sown in the land there? Because if you have 370 and 35A, no investment can go there. So why not follow the Dubai model perhaps? No person who works in Dubai has citizenship, no right to property. We can do that in Kashmir as well. Your thoughts on that?
Okay, the issue here is one that we have special Article 370, By the way, this Article 370 is part of Constitution of India, not Constitution of J&K.
Right.
J&K has a different constitution for their own assembly,
Right.
and Article 35A, which gives special privilege to people of J&K. Instead of calling citizens, they're called residents of J&K. That means nobody else can buy land there except them. These are the major issues that has been, or that they have been haunting India since 1947, creation of Jawaharlal Nehru. And one other issue I just want to mention is, I just want to show viewers a little map.
Okay.
This map here, as you can see, is actually not what India believes in. So that's why right here it says BBC map. You can see this whole color here, especially the dark brown one. This part is part of India. This is controlled by Pakistan. This part that China took from us in 1962. And this is where the war happened recently. And this little portion here was actually given as a free gift by Pakistan to China.
Right.
And I just want to show viewers one thing. Here is Pakistan, and you can see Srinagar right here, which is quite far from line of control. You can see Jammu is actually much closer to Pakistan. But all the bad activities or terrorist activities happen in Kashmir, in Srinagar, which is quite far from the border of Pakistan. And why does this happen? And before I go to that, I will just tell you that there are 22 districts in J&K. And out of 22 districts, there are only 5 districts that have been fighting for separation. Isn't that miscalculation on the part of Indian government? Out of 22, you have only 5 districts that don't want to be part of you. We never paid attention to the other 18 that actually want to be part of India. So we have been spending too much time, money on those 5 districts, and should have been a very zero-in game by Indian government in the last 70 years. I don't know what our politicians have been smoking, that at least 18 districts are in your favor. Let's work on the other 5. And that's how they should have approached the problem for the last 70 plus years. And if you look at the population of J&K, it also surprises me that Kashmir area has only 15% of the land, and Jammu is 26%, and Ladakh is about 59%, although a lot of people live in Kashmir area. So why have we not worked on 5 districts, small area, and also if Srinagar is too far from Pakistani border, why all the problem has been happening in Srinagar? That means our policy has been quite wrong or mismatched.
You are totally right about that, because that's where the party that ruled India for as many years, the Congress party, must be held accountable for the mess that Kashmir is. The mess that was created, built, there was no need, it was worse than Watergate, to have manipulated or disenchanted the local people in 1987 to have rigged the election in favor of National Conference and Congress party. So that's the time when people lost faith. The question is, how do we bring these people back into the mainstream? And I believe, and I hope you agree with me, is that Section 35, unless until the business transactions begin to happen, political settlement will not happen. And I somehow feel that if Article 370 can't be annulled, at least Section 35A ought to be, so that there can be more activity, because economic activity cannot alone be handled by Kashmiri people. You need the enterprise, you need the initiative of the entire country. You can't live off 90% of the money coming from the central government, which enriches you. That's a part of it that we have to abandon, what I call a general sentimentalism, with reference to Kashmir. बेचारे नहीं हैं, हिंदुओं को वहां से मार के भगाया. How many Kashmiri Hindus became terrorists? How many people became jihadis to go and blow the bomb in Kashmir? None. So it is ideological, and we have to counter that ideology of terror through very tough measures, because there comes a point in time you have to address the evil with a very determined force. Now the question here is that it's a very important question, is that Saudi Arabia, for example, there is money coming in Kashmir from many countries, and I am told that the Jhelum Medical College, which was set up in 1980, had significant money come from Saudi Arabia. It was the doctors who got doctorate degree. They were the ones who were the major promoters and indoctrination of Islamic ideology the way we see here. We have to stop these flow of funds the way it is happening, because unless and until they are bringing in suitcases, I mean, how do you address that scenario? And I, as a banker, I have a solution, but I would like to hear from you about that. Yes.
Okay. Every country has certain laws or rules. It seems that in India, money talks. So if somebody wants to give a lot of money, and part of that goes into the pockets of our corrupt politicians, then you can really do anything that you want to do. And that's how the money from Middle East has been coming into J&K and other parts of India too. So if you look at the educational system in J&K, you will see that in Jammu area, educational system is just like any other part of India. But in Kashmir Valley, things are totally different. Most of the people don't get educated beyond high school, and half of them go to madrasas. The money to madrasas is being given from all these Islamic countries. And what do they teach in madrasas? In fact, I was listening to one scholar, a Pakistani scholar, whose name is Javed Akhtar Gamili. He has written few books, and this is, I'm not quoting myself, I'm going to quote him. He was on TV in Pakistan a few days ago and was trying to say what has been going on in madrasas and what has been going on in Islam, why there has been so much radicalization of young kids. He says, would you tell your 5-year-old son to become a doctor and start to teach him medicine at the age of 5? Of course not. He said, why would you send your 5-year-old son to madrasa for next 5 years so that he can only learn Quran and whatever teachings are being taught in madrasas? He said, you are spoiling the brain of a young child in a religious way from the age of 5 or 6. And his quote was that in madrasas, what they teach is totally uncivilized things. And they are being taught that only people who have right to live on this planet are Muslims. Only rulers who should rule any nation should be Muslims. All the other non-Muslims have been born here to be converted or to be killed. If these are the things that you teach young kids, why would they not learn those wrong things and become radical later on? So what shall we do? We need to improve education process in J&K. Means cannot.
I would say not in J&K, only in K.
Okay, that's right. The reason I'm saying J&K because this is one state.
Yeah.
So we need to improve the educational process in Kashmir Valley area, where they're being taught wrong things by very few people. And I myself, being a Hindu, realize that 80-90% Muslims who live in Jammu and Kashmir area actually are just like you and me. They want peace, they want prosperity, they want happiness, they want good family, they want good education. But 5, 10, 15% people who are so vocal and powerful spoil the minds of the others who are peace-loving people, and these peace-loving people don't have the power, or they don't want to fight with the other radical people. So entire population of Jammu and Kashmir, or Muslim population Jammu and Kashmir, is being blamed. So it's not so. I'm sure 80% Kashmiri Muslims want same thing what you and me want. So government has to work on 5, 10, 15% bad people. And don't we have enough resources to go after 10% people? I'm sure we do. If we have so many army personnel assigned in Kashmir area, why can't we have intelligence where before anything happens, we pick up these kind of people, arrest them, have enough evidence against them and put them in jail, and at least protect other 80-90% Kashmiri Muslims who want exactly same things in life that you and me want.
You know, I'm hearing you and listening to your point of view, I'm even more convinced now that if education has to change, if the mindset has to change, there has to be interaction with mainstream India.
Absolutely.
So what I would say is that let Kashmiris run Bihar Emporium, Gujarat Emporium, Maharashtra Emporium in Jammu and Kashmir. That will create additional jobs, and then they will see that the handicraft and architecture or everything else, we are all Indians. There is no difference. As you rightly said, वो हमारे जैसे हैं, हमारे जैसे हमेशा से रहे हैं.
बिल्कुल.
ये तो 1947 के बाद ये हंगामा शुरू हुआ है. And we have to also make sure that when people from India begin to go there, Kashmir Emporium will be run by non-Kashmiris or whatever. Unless and until you create that environment, and I would say to the government is, use the central funds to set up these emporiums. So when people from other states and when other countries, other states go there, at least the local people will also see that their handicraft and the handicraft of the rest of the India is so close to each other and the differences apart.
Yep.
So that would definitely be a great thing to happen. We will take a short break, but when we come back, we will talk about the actions and what are the potential solutions. Because I attended a couple of Shok Sabha that happened for Pulwama victims, and I saw a lot of emotion, anger, frustration, that something must be done. So let's talk about what are the likely solutions to integrate Kashmir into the rest of the India. And we will talk about that right after this break. Welcome back. In this segment, we want to talk about solutions. Now, everybody has a solution to the problem. Cancel 370, cancel 335A, attack Pakistan. And I've seen this in many of the forums that I attended. There was extreme anger, extreme frustration that Pakistan must be hit hard. Now, is that a solution? It is. No solution is off the table. But there are short-term solutions, there are long-term solutions. In the long-term solution, I rate that there has to be a confrontation with Pakistan. I believe that. There has to be, ek baar jang honi hai. I'm not a warmonger, but if the enemy doesn't understand any language, then you have to kind of hit. Because the entire process of dialogue that India has always focused on has been vitiated and destroyed by Pakistan. There's no trust left. All that they want to talk about is Kashmir hame de do. Now, it is very important to know that one of the Pakistani leaders told Mr. Vajpayee that हम Kashmir to le nahi sakte aur aap hame de nahi sakte, which was a tacit admission that war will not fetch them Kashmir, and people of India will not let any government give Kashmir to Pakistan. Now, important part here is a very interesting geopolitical element, that Pakistan does not want Kashmir. You know the reason why? That's my take. The simple reason is that if, I have been told about this by some Pakistani friends of mine, that if Pakistan को आपने हमें कश्मीर को आपने सोने की थाली में भी मुझे दिया तो हम नहीं लेंगे, क्योंकि अगर ले लिया तो we end up being a marginalized state. Today, because of the Kashmir dispute, Pakistan is equated with India. And they have virtually become the de facto spokespeople for Muslims in India. That any time वो नासूर चुपता है So we get angry with Muslims in India, and that's what they enjoy. And that's why it has to be nipped in the bud now, and it has to be attacked. So the question here is the water problem, the Kashmir isolation of Pakistan, and India's economic might must go together. And I believe Kashmir has to get integrated with India. The other parties, why is the problem only in the India part of the Kashmir? Why there is no problem in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, which is also illegal? Because you know what surprises me, that most of the Americans and some Indians too do ignore the element that for the plebiscite to be held in Kashmir, the primary condition was that Pakistan had to withdraw all its people from POK area.
That's
which
right.
they never did. You will be surprised to know that even in many studies, this aspect gets ignored. And that's what we have to do. We Indians have to do a better job of doing that. Your thoughts?
Okay, Vibhuti, you very rightly said why there was never plebiscite in J&K. If you look at United Nations, the Security Council resolution, when this case went to UN, the UN put three conditions. And first one was that Pakistan must demilitarize area that was occupied by Pakistan. Number two, India will also demilitarize area of Kashmir, but will keep its forces present in that part of India to defend itself from Pakistani invasion. So that means India was allowed to keep some forces in J&K. And number three was, if both these conditions are met, only then J&K people are allowed to vote. So since Pakistan never demilitarized its own Pakistani occupied Kashmir, so that's why voting never happened. That's number one. Now coming to the resolution, everyone says let's abolish Article 370 and 35A. Article 370 is a little bit more complicated because through Article 370, J&K has accession given to India. So if you remove Article 370, that means from very next day, the population of J&K can vote to decide whether they want to be part of India or Pakistan. Now, knowing that, what shall we do? Can we afford to have voting in J&K, which means not only J&K, which is controlled by India, but also by Pakistan? Now, we know very well that given present situation, I would say only a foolish person would say, I don't want to stay in India, I want to go to Pakistan. So if you ask Kashmiri Muslims today, and of course all the non-Muslims will vote that they want to join India, but even among Muslims, I can bet you most of the Muslims who live in Kashmir Valley will vote that they want to join India.
Yeah.
Who wants to join Pakistan?
Correct.
But it's a tricky question. Now, only Indian Parliament with 3/4 majority can abolish 370, or President of India also has the power that it can abolish Article 370. But we know in the last 70 years, presidents have not done that. So coming to the solution, what shall we do? I think one thing is, if we cannot remove Article 370, we should definitely take 35A out of it, so that any Indian citizen can go and buy land or start business in J&K. That's number one, simple solution. Number two, let government spend money on educational system in J&K and close all the madrasas so that people of J&K, mainly Kashmir, can go to government regulated schools. And number three, this radicalization of Muslims in Kashmir should be stopped. And how do we do that? I don't think people are walking around in the streets and say, please join us and we'll give you guns and let's kill soldiers of Indian Army. These are people who are hiding in certain places. They recruit young boys by either giving them money or radicalizing them by teaching them things that I don't think real Islam teaches them. The money portion is extremely important. We all know very well that money talks. I don't think all these people are working for free, whether they are terrorists or they want to be would-be terrorists. They're given lots of money, and that's why Prime Minister Modi changed the currency a couple of years ago, because a lot of money was printed in Pakistan.
No, the demonetization, one of the, when you try to lose weight, and I always use that example, you have to hit yourself from every angle.
Sure.
And if you want to reduce the flow of money for 100 rupees or 500 rupees, they were throwing the stones, pelting the stones, that stopped.
Absolutely.
Post demonetization.
Yeah.
So if I were to take one single output of that, I would say demonetization did
worked right there. So all this fake money, printed money from Pakistan that was coming to J&K area was funding these terrorists, as well as these kids who were throwing stones because they were being paid. And what shall Indian government do now? Education is the backbone of civilization. Number two is morality, teaching them that, don't you want a better life instead of dying fighting the soldiers? And then it comes to the point where you need to improve the economy of the state, and we know very well how to do that. And then you counteract all the actions that are being taken by Pakistan, which Prime Minister Modi is, I think, master of that. He has already cornered Pakistan by going to different countries. I don't think there's any Islamic country that wants to stand next to Pakistan
even
these days.
Iran is giving them. The question here is, yes, you are totally right, that Pakistan has to be outmaneuvered in the whole process. And that's the key to the solving the Kashmir dilemma.
Absolutely.
And that's what is important here, is that we need to get over the sentimentality and Aman ki Asha and all that.
That's
it's
right.
not happening. We have to accept a very severe, harsh, ugly reality that Pakistan does not mean well to India. They want to do everything that makes India uncomfortable. And to that end, we have to learn the art. And I'm thinking about it. Again, just as I gave the suggestion to open other state handicraft emporiums run by Kashmiris in Kashmir, also do break the diplomatic relations with Pakistan. Hey, North Korea, South Korea, they have been out of diplomatic touch. Iran doesn't have diplomatic relations with the United States. I mean, I should say United States doesn't have diplomatic relations with Venezuela. US walked out of that. So the diplomatic relations are a nicety. It's a gesture. I think it should go away. India must do that, because that's the way you begin to isolate. But unless and until, I'm not saying that declare them as a terrorist state, but treat them as a terrorist state.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is the important part, is to look down upon them and show them that they are not a Pak nation, they have become a Napak nation.
Yes, and Prime Minister Modi recently, after this attack in Pulwama, has increased the duty of Pakistani imports by 200%. I think that will teach them a lesson, and is also the business community in India should also stop doing business with Pakistan, so
in
that
every segment,
absolutely,
sports, movies,
sure,
televisions. I mean, hey, India, I don't know if you know this or not, or the viewers know that or not. In 1974, India did not participate in Davis Cup final tennis tournament, country tournament, against South Africa for apartheid. The reason was
absolutely,
India surrendered that. Why can't we, show it to the world that we will not play World Cup cricket match if they are with the same group with Pakistan?
Yep.
Yeah. So let the people know, because India is the biggest market for cricket. And if India doesn't take part, the cricketing nations will begin to pay attention to that. And that's what is important, that we have to hit them in every conceivable, simple way.
I think we have lots of weapons. When I say weapons, I don't mean military weapons, but economic weapons. And that's what India needs to use. And to give you a very simple example, that if India wants, it can pressurize other countries not to do as much business with Pakistan as they have been doing, because United States use that strategy all the time.
Right.
And India should definitely use that. When it comes to negotiations, I have a little joke. Imran Khan has been saying for the last 2-3 months that he wants to sit across the table with Indian leaders for negotiations, that things can be negotiated. And the joke is that he married third time recently. If he was such a good negotiator, he wouldn't have been divorced twice already.
Right.
That's one thing. And number two, I think we have been doing a peace process for a little too long.
Yeah.
And Mahatma Gandhi has made our country a little impotent.
Yes.
And I think we have to come out of it.
Yeah.
I think enough Gandhi teachings for the last 70 plus
Right.
years. Now we should really take a path of Subhash Chandra Bose, Prime Minister Modi, Bhagat Singh, and Rani of Jhansi.
Yes.
That should be our approach, and not turn the other cheek, please slap me on the other side too.
Right. I mean, we are running out of time, but here is one thing which I wanted to say. As NRIs, what can we do? What is it that we can? There was a demonstration at Pakistan Embassy on Friday. The question is, what effective steps can we take? We have 2 minutes.
Yes.
And let's kind of wrap it. My thought process, I will share my thought process
Sure.
with you first.
I'll speak for a minute.
Yes. So one of the things which I thought of, why don't we boycott? When we talked about boycotting Chinese goods for China not supporting the UN Security Council resolution against Masood Azhar, there was a cry in India to not buy Chinese goods. Why can't we do that here against Pakistani grocery stores? Why do we have to shop there? Let's begin to show symbolic as well as actual. This is just a thought.
I think mass number has a lot of power. If you recall, Prime Minister Modi, before he became Prime Minister, was not allowed to enter United States.
Right.
Because lots of people had signed a petition that he was involved in Gujarat riots, and of course he was not. So he was denied visa for a number of years. We have such strong population of Indians and our presence in United States as well as in United Kingdom. We have huge number. We are perhaps economically better than all the other communities. Can't we sign lots of letters to our congressmen, senators, and put pressure on them that this is what terrorist country has been doing against us?
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a need for a very concerted action by us, Indians here, and one of them, there can be many. Let's talk about that. We will talk about this in coming weeks. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for joining today's conversation. Really appreciate that. And I hope you will all have a great weekend and come up with a determination of what to do about solving the problem as NRIs. Thank you.